Mom's scream sliced through the quiet of the house like a honed blade. I can still vividly recall the tremor in her hand as she held the phone, her knuckles bone white, her breath catching in ragged gasps between broken words. "Mark's been arrested," she choked out. "The feds? They dragged him out of the house like some common criminal." For a sickening second, the world tilted on its axis. The living room lamp hummed with a malevolent energy. Dust motes danced in a slow, mocking ballet in the sunlit air. And then it hit me, not as shock, but as a cold, creeping recognition. This was the moment I had unconsciously been waiting for. The culmination of months, perhaps years, of suppressed anger and simmering resentment. But I didn't dare voice that truth aloud. Not yet. I just stood there, an anchor of calm amidst the storm, as the carefully constructed illusion my family had so fervently worshipped finally splintered and crumbled. And as Mom dissolved into heartbroken sobs, repeating Mark's name like a desperate, futile prayer, I allowed the dark thought that had taken root in my soul to finally surface, whispering it almost too softly to hear. Good. Let him burn. Mark hadn't always been the family's shining star, the golden boy who could do no wrong. He meticulously cultivated that image over years, honing his charm to a blinding shine, perfecting his easy smiles, mastering the art of handshakes that made even complete strangers feel uniquely chosen, special. He possessed the unnerving ability to walk into any room and instantly command attention, as if he owned the very air everyone else breathed. And, in my youthful naivete, I had even foolishly admired him for it. He married my sister when I was barely 20, a seemingly perfect match. I still remember that first excruciatingly awkward family dinner, how he clapped me a little too hard on the back, laughed a little too loudly, and dismissed my quiet, unassuming job at the archives as cute, dusty, and ultimately boring, an existence beneath his notice. He delivered the casual barb with a charming grin, of course, and I, in my desperate desire to be liked, took it as a harmless joke. I shouldn't have, but back then, he was the hero of the family's favorite narrative. The self-made man, brilliant and untouchable. The kind of charismatic figure who kissed babies at political rallies and somehow miraculously remembered everyone's birthdays. I desperately wanted to believe he was genuinely good for my sister, for all of us. I was so blind then, so unwilling to see that beneath the expertly crafted charm lay a festering rot that no one else seemed to bother to smell. It all began innocently enough, with his phone carelessly left on my parents' kitchen counter one Christmas afternoon. An accident, he later claimed, a momentary slip of attention. But I saw the damning notification flash across the screen. A message he desperately didn't want anyone else to see. A message from a woman named V. Not a coworker, not a platonic friend, something else. I didn't open the message. I'm not reckless, just observant. But I watched, my stomach twisting into knots, as he snatched the phone back with the frantic urgency of a man grabbing incriminating evidence from a crime scene. He laughed a little too hard, spoke a little too fast, and pointedly avoided meeting my gaze. That was the precise moment the atmosphere in the room irrevocably changed. From then on, the subtle signs began to accumulate, quiet but relentless. Late nights at the office that stretched into the early hours of the morning. Suspicious business trips that somehow never quite aligned with his publicly declared calendar. My sister's increasingly hollow smile, a forced expression she didn't even seem aware she was wearing. Everyone else saw only continued brilliance, a man dedicated to his work. I, however, saw emerging patterns, and I knew deep down that patterns always tell the truest story. The confirmation came disguised as a stroke of mundane routine. A misdelivered box left on my doorstep by mistake. Inside, a Pandora's box of damning documents. Contracts, transactions, digital ledgers, all meticulously detailing a web of deceit that he must have arrogantly assumed no one would ever bother to unravel. But I read them, every single line, every carefully obscured detail. It wasn't just a simple, tawdry affair, a fleeting moment of weakness. It was something far darker, far more insidious. Shell companies, elaborate fraud, money laundering on a scale that defied belief, names that bore no connection to him. A twisted trail he had carefully buried beneath layers of calculated arrogance. As I meticulously documented his misdeeds, I felt something within me finally settle, solidify. It wasn't blind rage or gut-wrenching heartbreak, but something far more potent, a sense of purpose. If he wanted to mock my dusty job, he should have remembered one crucial detail. I know how to meticulously track history, especially the kind of dark secrets people desperately try to erase. I didn't confront him directly. People like Mark only truly crumble when they believe they are completely safe, untouchable. So I smiled insincerely at holiday gatherings. I clapped politely when he boasted about his latest achievements. I deliberately let him believe he still controlled the narrative, that he had everyone fooled. Meanwhile, I quietly, relentlessly collected everything. Dates, obscure transactions, reconstructed emails painstakingly pieced together from fragments of metadata he didn't even understand existed. Photos, seemingly innocuous conversations overheard, witnesses who had no idea they were even witnesses to anything. I moved deliberately, methodically, with the quiet precision of a seasoned hunter. No wasted steps, no carelessly left emotional fingerprints. And when I had finally organized all the evidence, when the case against him was airtight, I carefully forwarded the entire package to 3 carefully selected recipients. 1. A federal agent specializing in white-collar crime, a man known for his relentless pursuit of justice. 2. My sister, the woman he had so cruelly deceived. 3. Mark himself. His email bounced back almost immediately. He had blocked me. Typical. Arrogance always makes things so much easier. The federal agents knocked on their front door at precisely 6:14 a.m. I know because I meticulously timed my drive to pass by their street at that exact moment. He stood in the doorway, barefoot and disheveled, utterly stunned, still clinging to the carefully constructed facade of his own self-aggrandizing legend. Reality hit him hard in the form of cold metal snapping around his wrists. He shouted, he protested his innocence. He desperately tried to charm his way out of the situation, but the agents were unmoved. My sister stood silently behind him, her hair a mess, her eyes wide with shock and dawning comprehension, clutching the printed copies of the documents I had sent her. She didn't look at me as I drove past, but she didn't look at him either. That silent act of defiance was enough. He finally called me 3 days later from jail, his voice cracking with fear and desperation, begging, demanding to know who had done this to him. I let the silence hang heavy in the air for a long, pregnant moment, then I replied, my voice devoid of any emotion. Just someone with a dusty job. He broke completely. I didn't. Now the entire family knows who he truly was. Now my sister is free to rebuild her life, to find genuine happiness. Now Mom finally understands why my voice didn't tremble that morning when I delivered the news. I didn't do it solely out of a thirst for revenge, although that certainly played a part. I did it for justice. Slow, surgical, and utterly deserved. It's funny about dust. People tend to think it signifies neglect, decay, something to be swept away and forgotten. But dust remembers everything. Dust holds history. And in the end, dust buried their golden boy.